insurance requirements are at a basic level for a startup staffing agency. You all are always asking questions about workers' comp. To talk a little bit about, EOR and back office as well, because sometimes when the insurance doesn't work right, especially in the healthcare, you might have to take some different routes. So I wanted them to come and talk about that and to just answer any questions that you all have about insurance requirements, and just so that you can get some good clarity. This will be recorded. It'll stay in the academy for a long time until we bring Russ back. And if we need to bring him back, he's told me before. I don't know if it stands. He's like, if you need to bring me back a couple of times, I'll come back. Is that still true, Russ?
Yeah, well, we'll see if you have me back. So that's good.
That's cool. I appreciate that. So y'all, do me a favor. If you haven't greeted yourself in the chat box, please say hi to each other. Please send your welcomes. And also do me a favor and give Russ a hand. And let's welcome Russ to the table.
Yes, you made it.
I want to give you the floor, Russ.
After a long time of trying to plan this, I appreciate you bringing me out. This is great to be able to get on the front end of things and help answer any questions. And, I really wanted to open it up as a Q&A and answer direct questions that people may have about insurance coverage, what they may or may not need. Typically what we want to do is start out with a general package for insurance so you can get your foot in the door with really any company that's out there. Now, we may need to add coverage later on, but the general package starts out with general liability, which is just covering if your employees were to damage anything at somebody's location, that kind of stuff. General liability is going to cover that. Professional liability is the big piece that comes with general liability. Now, professional liability, you guys are all professionals. You're making a judgment on who is going to be the best person at this location. So if you put the wrong person there, that's something that they can actually come back and hold you liable for. That's why we want to make sure and cover this piece, because you are managing their payroll. You are the employer of record for these people. So professional liability is the big one for any staffing company. What we want to do is make sure that we have both the general and professional liability in place. We start everybody out with $1 million of liability limits on both of those lines. They're fairly easy to get. Now, Madison Insurance Group, we specialize just in temporary staffing companies. So that gives us a little bit of a leg up, and we have a lot of market share, so we can actually get contracts for companies that a lot of the other agents who just don't specialize. It doesn't mean they're not good at their job. They just don't specialize in the nuances of temp staffing, because there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. You are actually providing a service to your clients. So we are actually talking about a third party down the road. So like you have your company, and then you actually have your clients' customers that eventually may be coming in contact with your employees. So we got to make sure that everything is covering that third party liability. So those are the two pieces that we actually encompass into the general liability package. So again, we have general liability. It'll be a $1 million per occurrence basis and a $2 million aggregate coverage. So theoretically, you could have two separate $1 million claims within this policy. And that also couples into the professional liability as well. There's a separate line item on that policy that you'll see on your certificate that says professional liability, and it'll have that separate limit for that line of business. Those are fairly simple. Again, we just base it off of projections when we start the policy. New ventures don't have a lot to project. They don't know when that new or first customer is going to come. So that kind of leads me to the next piece, which is
Yes, perfect. First of all, y'all, please show Russ some love in the chat. We do have a lot of questions. And Russ, it was quiet because I think they were listening, but we have had this class every week for the last 5-10 years, right?
Okay.
So I get some standard questions all the time that people ask and that I didn't see come up. So I've actually put some discussion topics in the chat that I want to go through. And then some of the staffingpreneurs have also added some discussion. So if we can just start from the beginning, and I'll read the question out loud. And then once we get done with the questions in the chat, if anybody wants to chime in and come on live, they can do so as well.
Okay.
So my seal, well, first, before I do that, I would like for you to tell my staffingpreneurs why it's important that they have to have insurance, and what is the worst thing that could happen to them if they don't have insurance. What have you seen?
Well, there are state requirements to have insurance as far as work comp. Now, you're not necessarily required to have general liability, but both of these go hand in hand. If something were to happen, it will put your business out of business, just the lawsuit. It doesn't necessarily even have to be guilty of anything. You just really get into, you want to make sure that you have coverage in place to protect yourself, and the insurance company will provide that defense. And then on work comp, if you have more than 5 employees in most states, you have to carry work comp by law. Otherwise, you'll be fined per day that you don't have coverage.
Oh, wow. At what stage in the business do we need to have insurance? I'm just setting up my business. Do I have to wait to get insurance?
So you don't really have to wait. It is a helpful tool for you to be able to acquire new clients. So that's why we try to get people out as cheap as possible and get you slotted into these policies. But you also don't want to be incurring any charges too early either, right? So there's that sort of break even. I tell people roughly about 30 days before you're going to make that placement, let's actually start having a conversation and quoting, because when I shop everything out, we're getting a snapshot of what the market is right then as well. So like again, like what we dealt with during, it was really hard to get medical staffing written during because nobody knew what the liabilities were or weren't. But now, fast forward a couple months, later, it's not a problem. So insurance marketplaces change just like anything else, like you shop for home and auto. You shop it out and get the best rate, but it may not be the best rate in a year from now. So you don't want to do it too early, but also again, if you walk in with your presentation to these potential clients with a certificate of insurance with adequate limits, you're going to look a lot more professional. And I think it really shines on you. But again, you just don't want to do that too early.